had depression and anxiety ever since I was a kid. I tried a couple of antidepressants, but they caused a lot of side effects, and the benefits never really lasted. I was so frustrated by my lack of progress in talk therapy, things just never seemed to click. By 23, I'd already given up on the idea that I could be happy. I was slowed down, isolating, constantly irritable. Nothing ever got me excited. Most days, I was just waiting for the day to be over. Then I tried Greenbrook TMS therapy. By the second week of treatment, I wasn't constantly criticizing myself. My friends said I was more present, and I felt like it. For the first time in a long while, I wanted to do more than just sleep. I started thinking about ways to even add to my life. If medication and talk therapy haven't helped you feel as good as you want to feel, try TMS. I don't remember a time where I felt this good this long.
Hello, my name is Leslie White, and I am a member of the patient engagement team at Alkermes. Alkermes is a fully integrated global biopharmaceutical company that applies its scientific expertise, proprietary technologies, and global resources to the development of medicines in both neuroscience and oncology. And as part of our efforts to develop these new medicines, we seek input from people with lived experience in the disease states that we focus on. My colleagues and I are united in our purpose to pursue great science with deep compassion and to help address society's greatest health challenges, including serious mental illness, addiction, and cancer. And we strive to make a real impact for patients, their families, and the community. For more information about Alkermes, please visit www.alkermes.com. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Hello, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Karen Jantzen. I work at Riverbend Community Mental Health, and it is my privilege to be the executive producer of This Is My Brave, New Hampshire. Shame and stigma often present people living with mental illness to seek the support and treatment that they need. We all have a story to tell, and by sharing our stories, we offer hope and we offer inspiration. Please consider a gift in honor of our brave storytellers by texting TIMB20 to 44321. Treatment works and storytelling saves lives. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Marshall, co-founder and executive director of This Is My Brave, and I am so glad you're here joining us for This Is My Brave, New Hampshire. First and foremost, we need to thank our 2020 national sponsors. Our fall season of shows would not have been possible without their support. So thank you to Alkermes, Allergan, Jantzen, Greenbrook TMS, Synovian, and MeUndies. According to a study by the Kaiser Family Foundation, mental health issues have increased due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Average weekly data since June of 2020 found that 36.5%, over a third of adults in the U.S. reported symptoms of anxiety and depression, up from 11% in 2019. Now, more than ever, we need to be talking about mental health. We need to be listening and looking out for our friends and family. We can get through this together. Our hope at This Is My Brave is that by hearing our stories, you'll be inspired in knowing that recovery is possible. These brave individuals you're about to meet have been patiently awaiting their turn at the microphone since the beginning of the year. They were supposed to have been on stage in theaters across the U.S. this past spring, but the COVID pandemic had other plans. It's finally their turn to bring their stories of resilience and hope into the world, into your living room, because we know their stories have the power to encourage those still struggling to not give up. It gets better. Help is out there. By opening up the conversation about mental health through storytelling, we're breaking down those unfair societal pressures that tell us that perfection is the goal. That's not true. It's okay to not be okay. By sharing our stories, we normalize the fact that our brains sometimes get sick too. We need to be there for each other by having these real, honest conversations about how we're doing. You know, back when I was in Boise, Idaho in the fall of 2019 for one of our shows there, the film team, Braden and Carly, were wrapping up and packing up their equipment. And Carly walked over to me, gave me a hug, and said, "Jen, I have no doubt that the work you're doing with This Is My Brave is changing the world." And then she shared her story. You see, if I've learned one thing from doing this work over the past 7 years, it's that when one person shares their story, it gives others the permission to do the same. I like to call it brave multiplying brave, which is why I'm so grateful that you're here with us tonight. And I'm so incredibly grateful to the team at Riverbend Community Mental Health for bringing This Is My Brave to Concord for the 2nd year in a row. This Is My Brave's vision is to get to a place where one day we live in a world where we don't have to call it brave for talking openly about mental health. We'll simply call it talking. So, on that note, let's get This Is My Brave New Hampshire started.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Madden. I am the President and CEO at Riverbend Community Mental Health in Concord, and I am honored to welcome you to This Is My Brave. I want to welcome the cast, their families and supporters, who came here today to perform and watch the event. I also want to thank all of you who are tuning in and watching. This event, although virtual this year, will sure to inspire, and I know that we will see many powerful performances. A special thank you to the Riverbend team responsible for the production of our 2nd annual This Is My Brave. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that no one knows about, and their work is extraordinary. I also want to thank our community partners who have helped support this effort. Every element of our lives has been impacted by COVID-19. Our world has changed in ways that we have never imagined. But we are strong, adaptable, and creative, and that is what you will see from the cast tonight. Riverbend Community Mental Health has been committed to providing a full range of behavioral health services for decades. We too found ourselves needing to be strong, adaptable, and creative to continue our work over the past year. In mid-March of 2020, we implemented the technology needed to offer telehealth services. In fact, between April 1st and June 30th of 2020, we provided over 8,500 telehealth video sessions and nearly 24,000 telehealth phone contacts. We've remained open throughout the pandemic, as have all of the community mental health centers in the state. There was really one reason why we were able to do this, and that is the amazing staff at Riverbend. From the administrators who made sure we had all of the policies correct, had all of the protective equipment we needed, and were able to stay in conversations with public health to do everything correctly. But the real people I want to thank as well is our staff who staff the residences, our emergency services programs, and all of our outpatient services. These are good, kind, compassionate professionals who are without a doubt essential in every sense of the word. I want to thank them for all their work, and it is a privilege to be a member of their team. If you can indulge me for just a minute, I would like to tell you what keeps me doing the work I do. My story started when I was very young, 3, 4, 5 years old. It is really the story of my beloved Aunt Peggy, my father's sister. It is her brave than mine, but I will be her voice here today because she passed away many years ago. She was a person who lived with mental illness and intellectual disabilities. She spent her adult life in facilities. My first experience was going to one in Massachusetts when in the mid to late 60s, and even the very little me knew that that was not okay. That was not the way a person should have to live. Deinstitutionalization occurred, and my aunt was able to go into more community-based settings, but they weren't anything that was that welcoming or inviting either. In the final years of her life, she was able to stay in a very nice facility on Cape Cod where she could cook, see the boats in Hyannis Harbor, and visit with my parents. My parents were actively involved in her care, so she was really lucky. She had somebody looking after her all the time. There were many who did not have that. But my parents, in addition to taking care of her, would make sure that if there was anybody who needed anything, they got it, and everyone had something on Christmas morning. My aunt died on Christmas Eve, 1995. I spoke on behalf of my family at her services and just recently found my remarks. I was shocked how applicable they are today as they were then 25 years ago. And there's one key thing I would like to share with you that I wrote then. Despite all of her limitations and challenges, she was one of my best teachers. She instilled in me from the very beginning what still drives me today. All beings on this planet deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. She taught me that we all have strength and skills. They just may be different than mine. She taught me success is not solely based on what you gain or accomplish, but also what you give back. and that being gentle and kind is far more effective than anger or hostility. What my aunt did not have is a treatment team focused on helping her achieve her dreams and goals. She did not have the benefit of evidence-based practices that are tailored to the individual. I am honored to be her voice today. I am proud that we have done all that we have done to improve care for those living with mental illness and addictions, and especially excited to see the progress through these remarkable performances this evening. I'm also pleased that my aunt's brother, my father, Tom Madden, is here tonight to see firsthand the magic of these performances and share the joy of your success. So what will you see? You will see actors, dancers, poets, and storytellers share their personal recovery journeys. Everyone's journey is unique, and as it is in the way in which they will express it, but the message will be clear throughout. Treatment works. Please remember, if you need behavioral health assistance in your journey to achieve health and wellness, please reach out to Riverbend or any other community mental health center that may be in your region. Thank you again to all of the participants, their supporters, our community providers, and the team at Riverbend. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening to shine the spotlight on mental health awareness. My name is Rebecca Wolfe, and I work for Riverbend Community Mental Health, and I'm one of the producers of This Is My Brave, New Hampshire. I feel so honored to be presenting this to our community tonight, and I'm so grateful for your presence. Before we get started, just a few things. I'd like to thank our dedicated director, Ellen Desmond. Ellen has volunteered countless hours to making our cast feel heard, valued, and most importantly, that the story that they're sharing tonight feels authentically theirs. Thank you, Ellen. We couldn't do this without you. I'd also like to give a shout out to the rest of our producer team, Karen Jantzen and Becky Bemis. Your support during this process has been instrumental, and we're so grateful. Additionally, we have to thank Mark Siborowski for allowing us to use historic Phoenix Hall as a safe space to share these stories. You can learn more about Mark's plan for restoration of beautiful Phoenix Hall at thephoenixblock.com. Thank you, Mark. Now, please take out your cell phones, but before you turn them off, we want you to take lots of pictures, selfies, even video clips, and share these on your social networks with the hashtag #LiveBrave or Storytelling Saves Lives. What you are about to experience defines what it means to live brave. We need your help to spread awareness and to continue the conversation. So share away. Just remember to please silence your phones during the show. Our hope is that through storytelling, you will better understand mental illness and will be able to support those who may experience it too. And with that, we're going to kick off our show with a performance from our first cast member, Ellie Langille.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way the words do when they settle beneath your skin. Kept on the inside with no sunlight, sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. Just wanna see you. I just wanna see you. Just wanna see you. down to the mighty. Don't run. Stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in. Show me how big your brave is. Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave, and it seems your history of silence won't do you any good. Did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. See you be brave. See you be brave. I want to see you be brave. Yeah. I want to see you be brave. Before I start telling my story, I want to take you all back to high school for a moment. Try to think back to how the cafeteria smelled, how nervous you were during finals week, or even your first high school dance. Put yourself back into the shoes of the person you once were, a fresh, doe-eyed teen trying to navigate the real world. Outside of the walls of your home or school, the scary truth of not having a clue what you're doing sets in. Your first job, your first car, your first kiss. There isn't a rule book on how to be a teenager. Besides, if there was, I would have found it already. Now flash forward to today's crazy world and add the stressors of social media, stereotypes, and higher rates of teen substance abuse to your high school memories. In society's book on how to be a teenager, it looks pretty easy. The fact of the matter is that everyone's journey is different, and you can't always see it. On the surface, I look like a bubbly, sunshiny girl who lives through rose-colored glasses. And while all of those statements may be true, there is so much more than what's on the surface. In keeping with my rulebook analogy, there are plenty more chapters to get through. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and sensory processing disorder at a young age, which therefore affected my gross motor development. I wasn't able to go down the slide until 3 years old, and I had to relearn how to walk on grass every spring. I learned how to live with it, and my SPD began to fade. However, when I was in 5th grade, my parents' divorce significantly heightened my anxiety. Later, in 6th grade, 3 of my friends told me that they were suicidal at the same time. As they swapped stories of how they had tried to die, I fell into a massive panic attack, lasting the entire day until I caught up with my mom. As I broke down in the car, we went straight home and called the suicide prevention hotline to ask for help. I anonymously told my guidance counselor about my concerns, and to this day, all 3 are still alive. It was then that I realized that I can make a difference in people's lives. I am now a junior in high school, and I have had 2 more people come to me as suicidal. I've helped them the best I could. Again, they are both still alive. I've decided to dedicate my time to helping those with mental illness by raising awareness and educating school-age children about what to do in a crisis and how to help someone. I've done this through the Miss New Hampshire's Outstanding Teen program, where I've held 3 local titles and won more than $700 in scholarships. In addition, I've been guest speaking in health classes on my experience and attending youth leadership conferences to share my story, meet others as passionate as I am, and learn how to better help others. As someone who has not only experienced crisis situations, but has also experienced mental illness herself, I am an advocate for mental illness awareness and education with my platform, the H.O.P.E Project. Hold on, pain ends. I'm making huge strides in therapy, and I'm finally starting to love myself for who I am. Compared to other kids, my story is rather cushy. With therapy and a loving community, I've been able to take my anxiety by the reins and embrace it. However, so many people aren't as lucky. Mental health services and education are so lacking and difficult to obtain, and the stigma that surrounds mental health is as strong as ever. I want to share some statistics on mental health in kids, teens, and adults. 16.5% of U.S. youth aged 6 through 17 experienced a mental health disorder in 2016. That's 7.7 million people. 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. 1 in 25 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. Serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 through 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% by age 24. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. Let me repeat that. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. I hope that hearing my story and the other performers' stories help to bring awareness to the surprising commonality of mental illnesses and how important learning, adapting, and accepting is. I am living, breathing proof of my platform, the H.O.P.E Project. As hopeless as middle school felt for me, I held on, and my pain has started to end. Writing the rulebook on how to be a teenager is an impossible task, so I've officially given up on looking for one. Instead, I've begun a task that may prove impossible, but will be worth it. How to show others that there is no perfect, and there is no rulebook. Your journey is yours alone, but you do not have to go through it by yourself. Asking for help or admitting weakness is not cowardice. In fact, I really think it's my brave. Everyone here has their own brave, and so do you. No matter how young, old, rich, or poor you are worth it. You can hold on to hope, and you have the strength to be brave. These stories are a story of hope, and yours can be too.
It's my pleasure now to introduce Jennifer Mennis, here to deliver an essay about where she's been and where she's going. This is Mental Altitude.
I used to have a secret. I've dealt with depression since I can remember. When I was a kid, depression really wasn't something anyone talked about. I didn't know I had an illness, so I didn't ask for help. I didn't look sick, and I did all the things kids typically did: playing outside, swimming, skiing, hiking, biking, exploring. When I first ended up in the hospital at 19 years old, no one wanted to talk about it. My parents had no idea how to deal with me or my illness. It was a secret that no one talked about. I don't know what people said or thought, but I knew it wasn't good. Depression is not just about feeling sad. It's about not feeling good about myself. It's about constant self-talk that I'm not good enough for anything. It's about shame. It's about anger and stuffing that anger. It's about being afraid of letting anyone see my true self, because my true self is just not good enough. Depression is about having to muster every ounce of energy I have just to get out of bed. Never mind getting outside, enjoying all the beauty this state has to offer, like the ocean, lakes, and white mountains. but I do get out of bed, because if I don't, that's one more thing I won't like about me. Living with a mental health diagnosis has been a lifelong journey through good times and bad. I liken it to hiking. It's about climbing mountains again and again, knowing that the climb can be steep or gradual, long or short, and that this changes all the time. In preparation, one must consider all potential outcomes, and longer hikes require more tools, skills, and foresight. My life with depression has been never-ending, what I imagine it might feel like to hike the Appalachian Trail. When I started out, I had no map, no backpack filled with supplies. Heck, I didn't even know where the trail started. This life trek is sometimes about being in a deep, dark, cold valley where there's no light or warmth. In those inky black valleys, I can hear that others are near, but I can't always see them. I ask them for directions, but I have no reference point from where to start. I can't see or feel the sun that is shining above the trees, and I have no hope. Like the sunshine, happiness does not penetrate into the valley. The other hikers don't seem to feel the cold, but I do. They have clothing protecting them, and I don't. Without a coat, I'm not protected from all the difficulties thrown at me. Rather than being comfortably warm, I feel the anger, sadness, grief, and pain of the harsh realities of life. A psychiatrist might say that coat is a bunch of serotonin, dopamine, or other neurotransmitters. A layman, looking from the outside, may call the coat willpower or faith. I think one of the things my therapist might call the coat is self-love. Getting out of the valley is sometimes feels like crawling around blind, searching with my outstretched arms for an incline in the terrain. Feeling an upward path provides a slight sense of relief, but also fear of not knowing how steep and difficult this particular path may be, or whether there will be a sudden drop-off that has no warning. I've had to learn to trust in myself or someone who's leading me to ensure I'll be safe. Following others, such as my therapist, family, or close friends, is scary and requires that I let go of the strong desire I have to withdraw and keep to myself. As I begin the uphill battle out of the darkness of the valley, light slowly emerges, like sun rising over the mountaintops. In this still shrouded dawn, others continue to look scary, like monsters that can hurt me. I must continually remind myself that what I'm seeing, what my brain is telling me, isn't correct. The sun is out. People are smiling at me. I am worthy. My life traveling up and down the hillsides changes speed. Sometimes I'm in control of the pace, and sometimes I'm not. There are times when I'm venturing along the hillside, feeling fairly confident, and suddenly I hit a loose rock and tumble out of control far down the trail. At other times, I may be sitting quietly at the summit, and an unexpected gust of wind causes me to lose my balance. I roll a bit downhill, but quickly gather myself and head back up the few yards to the top. That loose rock? That sudden gust of wind? Maybe I haven't been sleeping well. Maybe I've been working too much. Or just plain trying to do more than I can at that point in time. Over the years, I've learned things and gained skills that I've woven together into a safety rope. With each fall, I reach for that rope and try to grasp tightly. I try to keep the rope with me and nicely wound at all times. Despite this, occasionally I get sloppy and that safety rope gets tangled, or it's just not long enough. I have to go to work on it again, adding more strands as I learn more about what causes my depression, my backslides. My safety rope lengthens with each climb out of the valley, learning new life-saving skills. Those skills include things like not shaming myself for relying on medications, knowing that I've tried not to time and time again, only to fall flat on my face. Kind of like trying to hike without solid footwear. Working with a therapist is also a strand in my safety rope. Other components of my rope include DBT, CBT, meditation, practicing my faith, keeping notes in my phone as reminders, eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising, treating myself with the same kindness that I do others. The list goes on, and I must refer to it regularly, like keeping the safety rope untangled. Living with a mental health diagnosis is often a long journey, slogging up and down those mountains. But just like hiking, the difficult parts are easier when shared. Relying on others is essential at times and does not make one a failure. Recovery is not just about feeling happiness again. It's about liking yourself. It's about using self-talk to overcome negative messages and having the ability to believe it. It's about being yourself and recognizing that there are people out there that genuinely like you. Recovery is living most of my time at the top of that mountain. It's about knowing that I have the skills to stay on top and using them appropriately. It's about not being afraid to lean on family and friends or ask for help. It's about being brave. Next, please welcome recent high school graduate Finnley Allen to share his poem, Something Isn't Right.
Something isn't right. Mirrors have never really been my friend. Their chrome skin and piercing eyes send silent stares my way, magnifying every flaw. In the crowded bathrooms at school, I push my way to the sinks, never looking up at my reflected image in fear of what might look back at me. Every day, when I arrive home, I charge to the bathroom, letting out a rushed, "Hi, Mom," as I hurry up the stairs. Closing the door, I hear the comforting click of the lock before turning to the mirror. My hands rise up to my face, trying to feel the imperfections that my reflection screams are there. His shouts grow louder as I struggle to find something, anything. I find nothing, only darkness. The mirror's screeching stops, pausing, but only for a second before a feral chant erupts from within the silver abyss. He calls, beckoning me to lean closer to his metallic lips and find those flaws. Crazed eyes pull me in, driving my mind to go numb. I am hypnotized. My surrounding world swirls as my face inches closer to his, our noses mere millimeters from each other. I feel as though he is taking control, taking my hands, pressing them into my cheeks, digging my nails into my own skin. I try to resist pulling my hands from my face, only for them to snap back into place. I give in. My hands resume the all too familiar process of picking and digging at my skin. My face goes red, fingernails are knives, grazing and cutting into the warm Sahara sand that is my own flesh. The urge to peel off my own skin grows stronger and stronger. Tears are streaming down the reflected face, begging me to stop. This isn't the answer, it echoes. This isn't the answer. Something isn't right. This isn't normal. This uncomfortable feeling that my body isn't my own. The feeling that my body and mind don't align. That this body I was born with isn't correct. That my body isn't male. Their flat chests and iron muscles remind me of something I don't have. The flame in my heart tells me that something is wrong. My body isn't right, but my mind isn't gone. Something needs to change. My hair, my face, my chest, it's all false. A facade I put up for family and friends and even for myself. Trying to convince them that I'm fine, that I'm happy. My hands halt their picking and scratching. I look in the mirror, unable to recognize myself. The chrome eyes that once used to be angry and hateful are now changed. Gray irises warm with color as tears of realization roll down our cheeks. What have I done? We whisper in unison, backing away from each other. He is trapped, he tells me. From birth, he has been trapped, unable to escape, but not inside the four-cornered reflected room, but rather inside me. Coming to terms with being transgender and accepting my mental illness took me many years. I spent countless hours fighting and arguing with myself that it wasn't true, that I was just a regular teenager with severe depression, extreme anxiety, and the added spice of trauma that would happen later in high school. Looking back, I'm in complete awe with what I was able to live as, spending each day pretending that I was happy in my own skin and comfortable with who I was. But in reality, I was suffering. I would cry myself to sleep nearly every single night, and I was too depressed and scared to ask for help. I would act as a therapist for my friends, when in reality, I had no one to talk to about my own problems. Finally, in my sophomore year of high school, I hit my lowest point. I reached out and asked for help and have never looked back since. Asking for help was the best decision that I'd ever made in my entire life thus far. Letting my parents in and seeking treatment for my mental illnesses completely changed my life for the better. I mean, yes, there were rough patches when we were looking into what would help me, like a therapist I didn't agree with or a medication that made me paranoid. But in the end, I'm no longer suffering and am not alone in this journey to recovery and becoming a better me. This is my brave. We will now hear from Karen Trudel, who will deliver her personal essay entitled Blessed by My Mental Illness.
I am currently living the dream. Oh. Yep, there we go. Start again. I am currently living the dream of my mental illness. Did you hear what I said? I consider myself blessed to have a mental illness, but that was not always the case. I was first diagnosed as a 22-year-old female with bipolar and anxiety disorders. I tried DBTs, ECTs, CBTs, EMDR, and art therapy. Everything did help, adding to my toolbox for when I needed to cope. Even with these tools, my hormones at times were too much to take. My symptoms led to me to be hospitalized 12 times in a year, all around that same time a month. My menses. And I finally saw the pattern. In my 20s and 30s, I saw a doctor at a Boston hospital that specialized in premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD. At that time, the doctor did not suggest anything because, as she said, you are too young. But by the time I was in my 40s, and still experiencing symptoms, finally, a doctor suggested one of two potential injections that might help with the symptoms. I knew a portion of my issues were from my period. The diagnosis, on top of bipolar and anxiety, was, as I suspected, PMDD. When I moved up here in 2013 to Concord, New Hampshire, trying to run from my mental illness, I had trouble finding a therapist. All these waiting lists were 3 months or more long. Are you kidding? There was no way I could wait that long. As someone who always found comfort in being active, specifically a swimmer, I decided to join the Y. I started to branch out more and more and actually started running 5Ks. My triathlon club became a supportive family to me. When I brought my OBGYN my month's worth of charts of my symptoms, she looked at me and said, Karen, I know this is real. She really listened to my symptoms, crying at the drop of the hat, being irritable, and suicidal for 2 weeks out of the month. After rounds of costly injections and the removal of ovaries and tubes, I had to undergo a hysterectomy to place me in permanent menopause. I had to scale back exercising, which was difficult, as exercising is the main way that I cope with things. I received the greatest news that I did not have ovarian cancer, but as 2019 unfolded, my mental and physical health would continue to be tested. During the time all this was happening, I learned of another development that would affect me. My case manager and psychiatrist, who I had seen for 10 years, were retiring. It was difficult to let go of such a stable psych team, which was starting to fall apart. With the help of therapy, spending time with my cat Meow Meow, and cooking, I returned to work as well as working out. I kept all of my therapy appointments and connected with my friends. I was me again, and boy, it was great. Then I had a mammogram that would change everything. I had breast cancer. Truthfully, I was in denial, but I was ready to face the challenge head on. The medical oncologist was concerned that my mental health could take a turn for the worse. I had to stop taking the drug that kept my moods in balance after the hysterectomy because my cancer was hormone-based. The oncologist knew all of my providers had recently retired. I was in a frail state, although trying to stay strong. She was right to look out for my well-being. Sometimes I would call her in tears, feeling depressed and angry. The fact that she was concerned about my well-being as a whole person was a true blessing. I elected to have a mastectomy and immediate reconstructive surgery. As I disrobed for the plastic surgeon and the surgeon drew on my body, I felt more vulnerable than I had at any other point in my cancer treatment. Though several people had told me I had breast cancer before, standing in front of this plastic surgeon naked was when reality had set in. My athletic body was never going to be the same. I was anxious, but I was glad that I never talked to anyone about the procedure or how it would affect me mentally. I felt that if I connected with a survivor of breast cancer, the anxiety would be too much and I might have not gone through with any treatment. I was scared, and no one could take that fear away. The afternoon I lost my cat, I met with my new therapist. It was so hard to start with someone else, since all throughout the appointment I felt heartbroken. I was angry, and honestly, I felt abandoned. But I know I am blessed that to have had such a strong team behind me for so long. My mental health issues gave me abundance of good things. Being on the board of directors at NAMI, New Hampshire, great coping skills and mental health advocacy skills. I have an excellent support network of family and friends. I found the right meds and a medical team that works for me. I'm still trying to adjust. Where'd I go? I still am trying to adjust to my new psych team, but exercising helps me feel better mentally and physically. I am blessed to once again live the dream with my new cat, Survivor, my true and calming comfort. After all, this cat fought through many difficult things to meet me. I love her with all my heart. My life has been recently an emotional roller coaster.
and I am forever blessed. As of July 22nd, 2020, I am cancer-free in the 603. Please, to my breast-bearing cast members, family, friends, and viewing audience, get your mammograms when needed. It definitely saved my life. I am determined to fight forever with my amazing family and friends standing by my side. This is my brave.
I hope that you are enjoying the brave stories you've heard so far. It's up to all of us to care for the behavioral health of our community. Storytelling saves lives. Treatment works. Give the gift of hope by texting TIMB20 to 44321. Thank you.
Now it is my honor to introduce Jenny Hoffman for her comedic reflection, Ready for a Timeout.
Let's give Karen another hand. I think I want to see bumper stickers that say cancer-free in the 603. That is a great thing to hear. Especially in 2020, we need good news, right? So as hard as it is to be after so many touching stories, I'm going to try to make people laugh now. So, you know, a little bit of an abrupt change in pace. Like so many of my cast members here, I've been living with mental illness for the past 20 years. And as you can see, it comes in a lot of different, shapes, sizes, styles, flavors. Mine's an extra special fun flavor called high functioning depression. And like so many of the others, people here who have struggled with depression, they talk about 3 of the big lies that it tells you. One of the first ones is that it tells you that no matter what you do, it's never good enough. One of the second lies it tells you is that you are a failure. Let's face it, you wouldn't be depressed. If you weren't a failure, you wouldn't be depressed, right? And then one of the third lies that it tells you is that you're alone in this. But the beautiful part about high-functioning depression is that we're kind of like the synchronized swimmers of depressives. There's a lot of poise, there's a lot of smiles on the surface. Sometimes we even look graceful. But underneath it is just a lot of thrashing and kicking and struggling to stay afloat. But you gotta perform, keep it light at all costs, right? I was diagnosed in college, and shortly thereafter, in my junior year, I had to do a medical withdrawal. I couldn't keep performing. And I could feel myself starting to sink. And it was funny, but not funny. Well, it was funny at the time. It's funny looking back on it now. That all of my professors looked at me and said, "But Jenny, I don't understand. You're doing so well in this class. You don't seem depressed." And well, yeah, Professor Simons, I tend to confine most of my day drinking and crying jags to outside of the classroom. So yeah, it seems like I'm doing pretty well. But as I watched all of my friends go and in their junior year study abroad in far off and exotic places, I decided to return home and convalesce in Cleveland. Yes, Cleveland, Ohio. I studied abroad in the Mistake on the Lake, next to the balmy waters of Lake Erie, which are always about 48 degrees. And so, thankfully, I was able to get myself back on track and graduate on time with honors with the rest of my classmates, despite losing that 1 year. I was doing well, but I was still limping along inside. Afterwards, I went off to the Army, and I enlisted. I went to airborne school. I was able to go to language school. I did a deployment in Afghanistan, and I was just collecting the awards and medals along the way. I had a soldier come up to me one time and say, "Sergeant Hoffman, how do you do it? How do you succeed here in the Army so well?" And I just looked at them, and I gave them the honest truth. I said, "Listen, soldier, it takes a lot of hard work, and a crippling fear of failure. Go on, carry on. And so that was probably the most honest I'd ever been about, with myself about what I was struggling with. But my whole point in telling you these things is not to humble brag and be like, I mean, look at all these things I still did, and I had depression. It's to let you know that when you're when you have high-functioning depression, it's a struggle to remember you can't just bury it under accolades and awards, and you can't outrun it, and you can't just do better. But it tells you you can. It says, no. All you have to do is strive. You have to try harder. Just try harder. Just do more. Try harder, do more. You can convince yourself then that you're worthy. Maybe if I just win that last thing, or if I do just that much better, maybe finally I'll think that I'm worth being around. And you tell yourself, if I try harder, I can. No, I will get better. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. I tried everything, and like so many of my fellow cast members said, these are all little tools that I brought into my toolkit. I tried medication, I tried therapy, I'm still on both of those. Self-help books, I tried seminars, webinars, NERs, anything. Anything I could do, I just keep striving, eventually, maybe I'd learn to love myself. And one of the things, anytime you're exerting yourself, you start sweating, right? Well, when you're mentally exerting yourself and trying to convince yourself that nothing's wrong, and if you just try harder, everything will get better, you do a lot of what I like to call mental sweating, or crying. And so, if you think about it, it's really the same thing. It's just a salty substance leaving your body after some exertion. But a few years ago, I realized I was mentally sweating pretty profusely, like every day, all the time. At work, before work, on the train home. Pretty much, it was getting a little worrisome. And I finally got to the point where I realized, I'm exhausted. I can't strive anymore. And I went to my therapist and I said, please, just send me to the hospital. I think I need some time out. And so within a week, I was hospitalized, and the treatment team there said I'd be a good candidate for ECT, which, for those who aren't familiar, it's electroconvulsive therapy. Yes, one of the most exciting treatments you can get. I'm sure you know it from its commercial in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's they really did a great advertising for it. Honestly, that's not even the scariest part about it. The worst part for me is that you can't have any food or water from midnight the night before your treatment on, like a gremlin or something. And so you're there, you're exhausted, you're depressed, you're tired, you're thirsty, and on top of that, you're hangry? That's gonna just dampen anyone's worldview, right? And so there I am in a hospital bed, wheeled into a very intimidating treatment room, not sure what I was going to get myself into, and I'm surrounded by a medical team. We've got a doctor, we've got an ECT nurse, we've got an anesthesiologist, we've got an assistant over here, there's some dude taking notes, I don't know. But I'm surrounded by millions of dollars of medical school debt. And I have no idea what's gonna happen. And so the next thing I hear from the ECT nurse is, are we ready for a timeout? No, I was just using that metaphorically. I'm not a toddler. I don't need, And that's when I realized that a timeout in medical speak is how they make sure they have the right person on the table by asking you your name and your date of birth before they put the wrong person under anesthesia and send electrical pulses through their brain. And so the nurse looks at me and she says, please give me your full name and your date of birth. And I say, Jennifer Lindsay Hoffman, And good try, I'm not going to give you my personal identifying information, but I can tell you this, that it was 35 days ago to the date. And all of a sudden, as soon as I said that, I just hear, "Oh, honey," in stereo from the entire medical team, because it all set in for everyone at the same time. This woman is here on her 35th birthday for her first ECT treatment. I'm not sure what rock bottom looks like, but it's rock bottom adjacent, right? And so there I was, half dressed, in front of a group of strangers, on the verge of passing out, and with a distinct possibility of soiling myself. And it was my birthday. But, actually, when I think about it, that's not too different from some of the ones in the early 20s, but those are for stories for different times. Stories for different times. And in that cloud of pity, I just realized, those lies came back to me. You failed, and you're alone in this. But as the cloud kind of dissipated a little bit, the ECT nurse looks at me and she said, "Honey, do you want me to hold your hand?" And I just looked at her. I said, "Yes, please." And she took my hand and she said, "Don't worry, we're going to take really good care of you." And I said, "Thank you," and then I blacked out. And that was the last thing I remembered. But when I think about it, that was one of the best birthdays I've ever had. Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. Hear me out. It was the first time I realized that depression is not a failing, and it's not my fault, and it's not a flaw. It's an illness, because it reacted to this biological stimulus in a way that I'd never seen with the other treatments, and I could finally believe it, that it wasn't my fault. And, don't get me wrong, ECT is not a cure-all. The side effects are awful. I lost an entire week. I was walking around like Dory, like asking every 5 minutes, where am I? So I found other treatments, but it was a huge thing to remind me that I'm not alone in this. That nurse who was so sweet and held my hand reminded me of that. My husband, John, who visited me every day in the hospital, reminds me of that constantly. And my friends, my family, my work that kept my job, even after several weeks of profusely mentally sweating at my desk prior to leaving. They kept my job through the month that I was hospitalized and took me back in that position as well. They all saw me at my worst and they stayed. And I might not be healed, but I know I'm not alone, and in this room I know none of us are alone. Sometimes strength looks like weakness, and sometimes progress looks like abject failure. So I just want everyone to know, don't give up. Don't hide. Ask for help. And if you need a timeout, take a timeout. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And now, it is my distinct honor to welcome Ed Prive to the stage to share his essay, "My Wife's Mental Illness Affects Me Too." I'd like a big hoorah for Ed.
I don't know why I'm supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. So there we are. I was friends with my wife for 6 months before they met, before we went on our first date in 1993. We had been a couple since. I was not at a high point in my life when we met. I just left inpatient treatment. but she was patient, caring, and understanding. A few years later, she had a bad car accident, but we went through this together. A few years after that, I gained custody of my son, and we thought we had it made. Unknown to us, he suffered a lot of abuse. I came home from work and found him unconscious on the couch from an intentional overdose. Together, my wife and I, with the assistance from his school counselor, sought help from NAMI, met with other parents of children with emotional disturbances, and participated in our son's DBT classes. My wife shared some of her own journey, which gave us all hope. Our son learned to cope better by asking for help and accepting difficult situations over which he had no control. We watched him become a stable young man. We learned that a person can live with and recover from mental illness. Excuse me. My wife by my side through all of this, and I by hers, yet I was unaware of how deep her pain and anguish were. As we walked through these things together, I was blindsided when she needed to be admitted to a psychiatric ward. I had no clue how to help her and thought the medical providers had all the answers. I was wrong. No slam against the medical field, they just don't have a magic wand. I knew she was diagnosed with PTSD and depression, as she had been on medication and seen a counselor for as long as I'd known her. But she functioned. She went back to school, earned a degree, winning awards and scholarships along the way, graduated top of her class. She landed a professional job and excelled at it. I was very, very proud of her and grateful for her presence in my life. She had managed our home, parented my children, had a relationship with our grandchildren. I found my soulmate, who accepted me for all of my picadillos, the good and the bad and the ugly, and still wanted to be married to me. And now she's saying, I want to die. I expected the hospitals to fix her. It was suggested that my wife have ECT, shock treatment, and I didn't understand what it was or what she was going through. No one took the time to talk to me and answer my questions, even though I was her closest supporter. She had actually asked the hospital to talk to me. They did not. I felt hopeless, scared, and alone, having no idea what to do. The treatment did help to some degree. My wife was able to come home, but still had to go ongoing treatments. After one of the treatments, when I could join her post-op, her face was fire engine red. I notified the nursing staff, but they didn't react quickly. I was scared I was going to lose my wife of 25 years. In a panic, I hit the red button, boink, on the wall, summoning additional medical staff. I was told I should not hit the red button, but my wife needed help. Later, we discovered that she had a partial collapsed lung due to the anesthesiology. I was in a panic, and because I thought she was going to die, these people were supposed to help her. What was their problem? Security came and told me to calm down. Mind you, I'd had a surgery on my shoulder, and my arm was in a sling. I would not back down until the medical staff took care of my wife. This was the day I realized that some doctors and nurses don't care about their people with mental illness. I thought this facility was supposed to be state-of-the-art care, but it was not true. When asking the medical staff for help, no one did their job. I felt hopeless, scared, and angry. To this day, I do not trust this facility. They couldn't help her, but I was sure I could. I set out to fix her. My suggestion is to think positive, exercise, eat better. Stop dwelling on the past, fell on deaf ears. Yet I still thought I could fix her. That didn't work out very well either. There were many more hospitalizations. One hospital, a social worker met with both of us, to discuss my wife's difficulties and how I could be supportive. At this time, I realized that I did not have all the answers for her. I slowly started to understand through talking with various providers and other family members in NAMI support groups that there were things that I could do. I could look into her eyes. I could ask her how she was doing and listen to her answer. I could be there. I could be there with her rather than fix her. When I learned, I could feel and understand her pain and frustration. I hope I never lose that. Today, my wife is doing better. There are providers who truly care about their patients, who always remember that the family members are important too. Being included in my wife's care helped me and helped my wife. I know my wife better than anyone else. I know what right looks like. I've learned about compassion, understanding. With a son that struggles with mental illness, and my own struggles with PTSD in the Marine Corps. Hoorah! I thought I understood it all. But walking beside my wife through this, I came to understand that mental illness impacts family members too. Not just a person diagnosed with mental illness. But I have learned there is always hope. Always hope. I love my wife, my children, and will always advocate for them too. This is my brave. It is my honor and gratefulness. I would like to introduce you to the poem Lauren W.B. Vermette to share her collections of words entitled Fire Poppy Poems. Thank you.
Good evening. For those who are curious, a fire poppy is a flower that blooms only after a devastating wildfire. My story is written in flame and smoke, in soaked tissues and felt-tip pens, on the surface of a raging river, in the stagnant ripples of a beaver-dammed pond. Mine is the story of a swinging pendulum and the flowers that follow fire. And it starts with an admission. Admission. Have you thought of hurting yourself? ribbons upon ribbons of red that spill from my open wrists, the pocket knife slit in my left bicep, 7 tattoos inked down my spine, pinion, safety pin scratches, missed med doses, overdose. Have you wanted to die? As a wolf in a trap, gnawing off my own leg, a headlong run into a furnace to escape the heat of the noonday sun, while rocking myself to sleep with the cool steel of a gun barrel against my temple, a star sending its last light for you to wish on. Have you tried? 7 pills in a circle, yes. 7 pills swallowed one at a time, yes. At my desk with a razor against my wrist, yes. Bent over a bridge rail, held back my ex-boyfriend, yes. What led you to hold back? The will to push against the grill of an oncoming truck, to flatten the toad that said I should be fertilizer, to hone a butcher knife but never eat meat, to waive my medical rights so that my husband can commit me to your care. Do you feel safe to go home? Home is a heart tattooed around an old scar. Home is vomiting liquid charcoal down the front of a hospital dressing gown. Home is opening amber pill bottle after amber pill bottle, night after night after night, and never feeling better, wondering if I will ever feel better. Is there a way for me to feel better? Have you thought of killing yourself? That was me, 12 years ago, being admitted to a facility where I was finally diagnosed and treated for bipolar. Bipolar is an insidious, exhausting illness where you have no control over your emotions. Everything is amplified, your joy, your sorrow, and for me, even the volume of the world is cranked up. I could hear everyone's feelings, and in the pendulum downswing of my depression, I could hear voices inside my head telling me I was worthless, a waste of perfectly good fertilizer. The upswing of mania is even more terrifying. My fundamental, gentle self was locked in the trunk of my mind, gagged and bound and screaming to be let free, while my exterior exploded into a wildfire of ribald frenzy. I became a vicious flirt, a femme fatale. Mood stabilizers are what saved my life and continue to be my saving grace. I had a friend once express fear about taking a medication to combat mental illness, that it would somehow erase who they were as a person. For me, medication is just the opposite. It liberates me to be who I genuinely am. And who I am, and who you are, my fellow This Is My Brave cast members, is the fire follower, the seed split open by smoke, rooted in ash, proud stalk straining towards the bright, the alpha breaking through the omega, the beginning following the end, the opened window after the closed door. We are gentle petals unfurling into flames of color, hot coal red, fireheart orange, heat trail yellow. We vanquish anguish, extinguish frenzy's final sparks. We are the calm after the firestorm, a reminder that the sun will rise for those facing their longest nights, that every fallen forest is covered with a carpet of living light. Thank you. Finally, we will conclude This Is My Brave New Hampshire with How You Treat People is Who You Are, a spoken word piece by Freddy Fri, performed today as a dance, choreographed by Riley Reinert, and gracefully brought to the stage by Ellie Langille.
Heartbreaking look at the dangers of cyberbullying through the eyes of a grieving family. Their 12-year-old daughter took her own life after they say she was targeted by her classmates on social media.
This is a terrible story that every parent dreads. Their child bullied at school.
Suicide is now one of the leading causes of death among young people.
The 6th grader committed suicide last week. Authorities say she suffered nearly a year of cyberbullying.
The teen took her own life after being relentlessly bullied at school.
160,000 says her daughter's suicide. 300 months of bullying on social media and in person.
A.D. Williams once said, "Imagine what 7 billion humans could accomplish if we loved and respected one another." Just imagine. Imagine if there was no greed. Imagine if there was no comparison. If everyone was running their own race, but cheering for all others at the same time. Maybe we'll never see that in our lifetime. But what we all can do is start with ourselves. Start with yourself. Choose to lift others up. Choose to set the example of kindness and integrity. The example of compassion and understanding. There's a quote that says, "No matter how educated, talented, rich, or cool you believe you are, how you treat people ultimately tells all." Integrity is everything. It really is. Who you are is far more important than what you have, and it will always be. Who you are is measured by how you make others feel. Be kind to each other. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Choose to be the change you wish to see in the world. Decide you will not wait for someone else. You will set the example. Be kind. Because you never know how much that person is suffering inside. You never know the difference your words can make, the difference your presence can make, the difference you can make to one human life.
Another round of applause for our amazing cast. Thank you, cast members, for your vulnerability and bravery tonight. Your stories are proof that, one way or another, we are all affected by mental illness. And by simply being here tonight, we are building upon a movement of people who are willing to be more open and supportive to those who are struggling. So thank you all. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available, and you don't have to suffer alone. Resources are available. Visit thisismybrave.org or riverbendcmhc.org for more information. How about one more round of applause for our storytellers? Thank you. Good night.
followed by doubt. I'd forgotten what freedom was like. Puzzle pieces on the floor, they don't fit in anymore. I'm changing, I'm changing.